The show is made possible in part by its supporting sponsors: Blue Water Power Group of Companies, Joe's Discount Tire, and AskGuy.ca. I get to go into people's homes when I do these kind of interviews. I've been enjoying, as I've been saying every week, coming into people's homes or their space. And today we're sitting here with a gentleman that I met several years ago. And outside of dealing with at the United Way, we've become friends as well, right?
Sure have.
Dave Brown, thank you so much for welcoming me here to your...
Of course.
I'll have to take some B-roll and show. We're looking at the Blue Water Bridge here and St. Clair River, and you got a beautiful view here.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. We always have good conversations, but this time, normally we're talking about United Way, and we'll get into a little bit of that, but
sure.
Let's talk about you, and where do you come from originally?
Well, originally I was born in Hamilton.
Okay.
And then just finishing grade 7, my family moved up to Bracebridge. My dad got a job up there. My grandparents were there. And I did all my high school there.
Oh, yeah. How was high school for you?
It was good. It was good. I played a lot of hockey up there.
Okay.
In fastball. And then I came down in 1982 to go to Lambton College. And loved the area, and was blessed to get a job with United Way.
Yeah.
The last day of school, literally.
Is that right, eh?
And I've been able to stay.
How long have you been with the United Way now?
I'm in my 38th year.
Wow.
So I started in...
They must like you.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah. What did you take at the college?
I took the old RTJ program, which
Yeah.
was Radio, Television, Journalism.
Is that right, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. The late John Murray and Jeff Lane
wow.
were the teachers there.
Yeah.
I still see John Huss now and again in town.
Yeah. And you, was that was a direction you were, so you took that, but you ended up at United Way. That was kind of a different direction.
Yeah, like I guess most kids in the Sarnia area, you want to get a job with one of the refineries or one of the chemical plants.
Yeah.
And, I thought maybe in public relations, maybe broadcast, journalism, so-so.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe broadcast. And then the opportunity came up with the United Way. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll do that for 2 or 3 years, and get to know people and get a bit of a resume together, and then I'll move on. But I just loved it since day one, and as I said, I've been blessed to have been able to spend 38 years of my life with United Way.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that, and retirement's in the future, I think.
I think so. I think we may be, depending on how this campaign goes, and there may be an announcement officially, maybe in early 2024.
Yeah.
But I'll give lots of notice.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be like 2 months or 2 weeks.
Right.
Give lots of notice. So it was nothing immediate for sure.
Okay. All right. So in between, your life then has been United Way that long. But what are you doing when you're not United Way? What can you tell us about Dave Brown that maybe most don't know?
I'm a big believer in life-work balance, for sure. So I do enjoy fishing.
So when you're not United Weighing it, I guess is the way to put it. Tell us something about Dave Brown that maybe most don't know.
Well, I'm a strong believer in life-work balance, for sure. So I try to get out of town a bit if I can.
Okay.
I love doing weekend road trips.
Oh, yeah.
To places like Goderich or Bayfield or Paris.
Nice.
I enjoy fishing.
Yeah. Do you catch much?
I haven't had a chance to get out much lately.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy pickerel and perch.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
When I do go out, I usually do have...
are you from the shore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have a 10 or 12 foot aluminum boat.
Oh.
But now living in an apartment, I've got no place to store it. So now I just do shore fishing. And I love the beach. Anything around water really is what I enjoy.
Jennifer and I bought some rods, and we got out twice, and we haven't been able to get back out since. We want to do that, but do you got a secret fishing spot or anything like that?
Not really. I used to fish down south of the casino, south of Purdy's. But there's a lot of ticks. And it's all private property now. It's all fenced off. So I used to enjoy going down there. It was nice and quiet.
Yeah.
And the luck was usually pretty good. And I've had a little bit of luck out by the water treatment plant, just just here at the mouth of the river.
There's lots of people fishing around here for sure, and it seems to be a pretty popular hobby. I mean, and why not
Absolutely.
for where we live.
And perch is $27 a pound, so it's a lucrative hobby for sure.
Yeah, right. What's as we talk about family, you have kids?
Yes, I've got Brittany, who lives in London. In fact, she started her career working for United Way Sarnia-Lambton Sudbury, Nipissing, which I'm super proud of, and it was great to see her at some of the national conferences. So she's doing great in the insurance business in London. And then my son Josh they both went to Boreal in Sudbury, so they're both bilingual. Josh is currently working at the LCBO, and just recently has been recruited and appointed as coach of the grade 9s and 10s girls St. Pat's volleyball team.
Cool.
So he's excited about that.
I bet.
He did go to Boreal. He played collegiate volleyball there.
Okay.
And just this past spring was inducted into their Sports Hall of Fame.
Cool.
And he's done coaching in Michigan as well as in Sarnia. So he's looking forward to a volleyball season. And I kind of miss going to some of the games.
Yeah. Proud dad you are.
Absolutely, at both the kids, for sure.
That's great to be able to say that. And is there any grandkids around or anything?
No. They're both pretty focused on their careers right now and making money. So, Brittany is 30. And Josh just turned 24, so they've still got
some time.
Some time, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Would you look forward to that? Would you? No pressure.
I think so, but I think I want them to be ready first to make sure that they make the right decision at the time.
Yeah.
But they got some pretty exciting careers and potential.
Yeah, right on. What I've lived here all my life, so I can say some pretty great things about where we live. But for somebody like you that came from somewhere else and then to plant your feet here, I mean, a lot's changed in 30-some years of you being here. What was it that, you said earlier, like, I kind of like the area. What was it about it that what stood out to you?
In addition to the natural beauty of Sarnia-Lambton with the river and the lake and all that, there's a real sense of community. I mean, we're far enough from Toronto that we're our own community, and we support each other. We depend on each other. We don't depend on Ottawa or Toronto. We're kind of at the end of the road, and everybody just seems to do what makes sense for this community and for the neighbors. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's well, I've never lived anywhere else, so I don't really have anything to compare that to, but I hear that from a lot of people, that live here, but people like yourself that came from somewhere else and decided to plant their feet here. Do you follow politics at all? Do you get any of that? I know it's dangerous ground to discuss, but sometimes. But do you follow that along closely?
I do follow politics because so much of what the Prime Minister or the province of Ontario do as far as legislation affects our community. Yeah. And it may affect charitable giving. It may affect volunteerism. Certainly it affects the types of programs and services that we fund. Yeah. So I very much follow it, both professionally and personally. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's avoiding really saying what he wants to say, but I get that. That's on the personal side of that, though. Let's go. I got to ask the question. The pandemic, came along, and everybody dealt with that differently. Some it affected. Did you struggle through that, like personally?
I did a little bit. Fortunately, we had good staff, and we did a lot of Zoom meetings and whatnot. But I made a point of getting out every day. Yeah. Not to somebody's houses, obviously, or to wherever. Yeah, right. But out for walks. And it was just great just to see people and to say hi and good morning. So I thought that was really important. I got out every day, went for a walk, either to the casino and back, underneath the bridge, or around through Canatera. But like everybody else, I felt you felt a little bit of isolation, and I wouldn't say depression, but you just felt down. I'm typically a fairly social person. I do like to get out and do things, like yourself.
Yeah, very much.
And so that definitely had an effect. But definitely, I think making a point of getting out and just
as much
seeing
as
people.
We were allowed to, I guess.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That looked different. Yeah, thank goodness for Zoom. Could you imagine if this happened in 1970?
Oh, that's right.
Two, whatever, and
That's right.
and whatever. So, what is it? What's going back to the starting of United Way for you? I mean, that's aside from family, that's really been your life, right? Is that fair to say?
It has been. It has been. Yeah. I mean, the day after Labor Day is when the campaign is in full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And I've always said, when I do retire, I'm going to sleep in on that Tuesday after Labor Day, because you had school, and then you had college, and then we had campaign. So Tuesday was always a bright and early day right after the long weekend where we celebrate organized labor. And so for sure, I'm going to sleep in on that Tuesday.
So I won't call you that day.
Well, I'll put my phone on Do Not Disturb. But yeah, it has been my life, and I'm really proud of it. I've met some incredible people, both at the staff level, the volunteer level, and also at the donor level, and learned a lot from a lot of people. And it's really been a great job to have.
What do you think's changed over the years? Again, from so many years being like, to be able to stay at one career and want to. Some people stay in a career for 38 years, 40 years, and they don't really want to be there, but they do it because what was it about it? I know the people and stuff, but is there some kind of glue there that said, this is where I belong?
I think for me, I'm a very competitive person.
Oh, okay.
And I always try to do better at something, or do better than somebody else at something. And so we always have goals. We always have campaign objectives. We have donor-based objectives. We have, we measure the agencies, and so it's always kind of fun to kind of compete against that. And with the annual campaign, you very quickly see the results of your hard work. I mean, it's not like saving for retirement. 40 years, and or on a weight loss diet. It takes
got some
months
impact.
Right. This way, you see the impact relatively quickly. We send out letters on Monday, and Friday they start coming back, and you get great comments from people who will write different things on their checks, and so I think that's been the motivator. It's just that, and every day's different. I could go in tomorrow and have my schedule, but then something happened, good or bad,
right?
And it changes the focus of the day. And there's always new things to learn and new problems to solve, and so I think it's the variety and the impact.
So how old were you when you started?
I was. Let's see. Well, I'm 59 now. If that's what you're driving at.
No, I wasn't trying.
So
but
I would have been 21.
So 21 years old, and you became an executive director
at 24, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
So at 24 years old, that's a year older than my son right now, and I think to be an executive director at that young of an age, I would say, was that probably very rare?
Oh, yes. In fact, I was 24 or 25. I was the youngest executive director of United Way in Canada that raised over $1 million for 6 years.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was 31 before.
So you're making some people jealous there?
No.
In a competitive way.
Well, I suppose. We're always sharing information at the United Way level and trying to help each other. But there's always that, who could reach goal first?
Right.
Who can get your costs lower?
And you are the competitive type.
Exactly.
Right,
exactly. So there's that. There's that, that wink and a nudge. So there's that, for sure.
What about when you're 24 and then you're 59, or even 24 and say 34,
right?
Your brain works a little bit differently than as you grow.
Right.
Did you? Was there any arrogance about you in the sense of, and I mean arrogance in the sense of, I'm going to change everything and I'm going to take on the world and I'll show everybody how this is done, or how were you at a young age compared to, say, when you were 35 with it?
I don't think I was ever that way. I've always been a good listener, and I always knew there was lots I didn't know that I didn't know.
Right.
And so I'd like to tell you I don't think I was arrogant.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you've got to be confident too that we're going to reach this goal. I know we can do it. I know we can reach this objective within this workplace. But I think the fact that we've had staff with us for so long, and there's still some volunteers that are at the workplaces that were there in the mid to late 80s.
Is that right? Wow.
So I like to think that they enjoy working with us. They enjoy what we do. So I think that's a pretty good benchmark, a pretty good measure of how I've been. It's hard sometimes if you know in your gut you want to go one way and somebody else wants to go another. But it comes down to negotiation in a lot of that case. And I know I negotiate a lot with the board and with other donors and whatnot. And
did you have that skill in the beginning, or was that a skill, that negotiation, that's something learned over time, isn't it?
It is, but I think I've always been a people person. I really do. So that certainly helped me. And you're right. I mean, I learned the negotiations from other people and just from watching and observing. And I just try to hit everything so that it becomes a win-win.
Yeah, very good. So aside from, let's get more on the personal side too. It's hard to get away from talking about United Way because that's your life, right?
But, that's right.
So your kids, and they're doing great, and you've been doing fishing. You talked about kind of traveling, like I guess, what do you call it, day tripping or local traveling or whatever.
Right.
You mentioned Goderich.
I love Goderich in the Bayfield area. One of my favorite trips is St. Jacob's Market.
Oh, yeah.
I usually go there twice a year, once end of July and once probably into September.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of nice to go down and get some fresh produce. And again, there's lots of people to see.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I like to go into the town itself and maybe have a glass of wine or a beer there.
Yeah.
Maybe a snack. And Stratford's always a nice place to hit on the way back. And same thing. Paris was on my hit list this year, but I didn't get a chance there yet.
Yeah.
But Elora, hanging up farmers markets and little community. I'll go down to Chatham. They'll have their Red Fest. I know we have ours here too. But they have concerts, and Wambo puts on great concerts.
So you like the small cities, the communities, compared to,
I say
because you were from Hamilton originally, which is much bigger than those places.
Yeah, actually, we grew up in a small town called Binbrook, just south of Hamilton. But I was actually born in Hamilton. Yeah, I think I do like the smaller cities. Not that I'm against the larger ones. I mean, I go to Toronto for ball games and for shows, and
Toronto gets picked on a lot.
It does. It does. It's become an expensive place to visit.
No kidding.
But what I find mostly about the bigger cities is the volume of noise. I mean, the hustle and bustle and everything else, I gotta get, but all the sirens and I know you're a bike rider. The loud motorcycles and it's a lot. It's loud, and I have a hard time adjusting to that. And maybe that's why I enjoy hiking and that kind of thing. It gets away from that noise. But I enjoy visiting the big cities too. But there's something about small town Ontario.
I've never been a big fan of big cities. I just I've lived here all my life, and I don't know. I guess I like being able to get anywhere at the busiest time of day in 15 minutes, hitting every red light,
and finding a parking spot when you get there.
No problem, right? So yeah, are we spoiled? Are we spoiled here? I always say Sarnia, but I should say Lambton County. Are we spoiled? Like in a good way?
I don't know if I use the word spoiled. I would say we're grateful for what we have. Yeah. And we know the secret of a great life in Sarnia-Lambton. So to be spoiled, no, I don't think so. But we certainly take advantage of what we've got.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. We're with our water, and I'm hard to focus sitting here looking where we are at the Blue Water Bridge, and in this apartment building. You can probably figure out exactly where we are with that. Do you? Was there ever a time when you were growing through the United Way, like at a young age, did you ever think? Well, you said originally you went to school for radio and journalism, and then you thought, I'll do this for 2-3 years, and then where were you going to go after that 2-3 years? Into journalism, radio, or something?
Yeah, or maybe into corporate communications, something like that. But it's interesting. You wouldn't think there's a correlation between what I do and what I study, but I still have regular, daily newspaper columns. We're doing more and more on YouTube and photojournalism with our brochures, and so it's really come full circle. I'm probably using as much those skills now as I did 20 or 30 years ago. Although you're right, you wouldn't see how there's many transferable skills, but there's a lot.
Well, and I'm really proud of you, of the fact that I see you online, like going Facebook Live and
Right.
doing videos and stuff when you're at special events. Was that a step out of the box thing for you, or were you just like, it doesn't bother me to go live and talk?
Well, of course, at Lambton, we did a lot of VNG work.
Yeah.
So, I was familiar with that, and back in the day of when we had TV news more prevalent here.
Right.
I was on the opposite end of the camera there. And then I got out of that because we just don't have that here. But now, because of people like you suggesting I do more Facebook Live and do more video, and you've been absolutely right. The amount of views and reactions we get is beyond what I would have expected.
Yeah.
So that part has certainly come full circle. So I'm back into that box now.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. I'm rusty. I mean, compared to yourself and compared to, back in the days when we did ENG a lot.
Yeah, right. You're doing great. I watch and I'm just like, here he is, and you're looking at the camera, not at the screen. Like, you're thinking of all these things. And what has Dave Brown not done yet? That, like, do you have a bucket list?
Not really. I like to think I'm too young to think
Like
of a
horseback
bucket list.
jumping out of an airplane or something? Or?
I'm not great at heights. The one thing I guess there's two things that I wanted to do, and one I'll never get a chance to do, is I wanted to see a Montreal Expos game.
Okay.
So I missed that opportunity. But I was fortunate to see Gordon Lightfoot in concert.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was one of the things that I wanted to see, and I'm glad that I did. I saw him in Aurora, the Aurora Folk Festival. And but anything I want to do, just maybe some countries I like to visit.
Okay.
I would say I'm going to Panama in January.
Oh, nice. We were just talking about that too, actually. So we'll look forward to hearing about that.
So I'm looking forward to going to Panama. Usually I go to resorts for a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out of my comfort zone. I'm going to be renting a condo in rural Panama.
Okay.
So I got to brush up on some Spanish and take Google Translate with me. Just for a bit of a change. I might love it or I might hate it.
Yeah.
Part of that work-life balance.
Yeah.
We're down to 4 staff at the United Way, so we're all doing more and more creatively. So it'd be nice to get away. As I get older, I find I'm not as big a fan of the winter as I used to be.
Right.
And I know our winters aren't as bad here as they are in Bracebridge and even London.
Yeah. Not bad for being right on the water.
No, but you get some cool winds out the lake.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But so I'm looking forward to that January getaway for sure.
Yeah.
And there may be others, maybe Nicaragua. I've heard good things about Ecuador.
Yeah, me too. Right.
Yeah.
We just had friends of ours buy a condo down in Panama.
Oh, very nice.
And we're able to have access to
You know
that.
the city?
No, I've never been.
Okay.
So we're...
Well, it's great they invite you to come along, but they don't tell you where they are.
Well, they probably did tell me, and I was just like, oh, it's Panama. Like, I don't know. So anyway, so we're going to be able to go down and check that out, and who knows, that's where, and Nicaragua, I've heard too. So that's stepping out of a box for you, like to go by yourself, because you're not married anymore.
No,
you were married before, but so you're a single guy.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times we probably think, oh, that's scary for female, but.
Yeah.
What's nerve-wracking for you as a man to go by yourself?
It's just that normally I'm in a resort.
Yeah.
Everything's done for you.
It's off the beaten path.
Right. Whereas this is, you talk. If you want to eat that day, you go talk to farmers in the area, and you negotiate or you pick up what you want. Yeah, where I'm going. So as opposed to just going up to the buffet and picking what I want every day.
That sounds like fun to me.
I think so. I'm excited about it. But a little bit nervous.
Yeah,
but not from a safety standpoint. Just, if I don't like it, I'm going to be there for a few days. So but I think I will and get out and talk to people and everything else. No, I've traveled either by myself or I've taken friends of mine.
Yeah.
Or in this case, I'm actually taking my cousin. She lives in North Bay, Callander, Ontario, actually.
Okay.
And we've traveled a lot to save the single supplement. Because she's single too,
right?
And so she feels safe when she's with me, and I've got somebody to talk to and make sure I get home after the late night disco.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
right. You like the disco, do you?
well, I just like to go and people watch
Right.
more than anything. But she's great to travel with, and so is Sue, another friend of mine that I went to Cuba with last year.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Some with similar interests, like I mentioned, the beach.
Yeah, right.
I love the beach and just unwinding and reading.
Okay.
And just getting away and
Reading.
flying under the radar.
Yeah. What do you like to read, Dave?
Mostly self-help type books, finance, leadership, that kind of thing. Some technology books.
Yeah.
Not big on fiction.
Okay.
Although I'm going to try that when I'm in Panama. Fiction, I'd sooner watch.
You're a Trekkie? Are you Trekkie or
No, not
Star
sci-fi.
Wars or Star Trek?
Neither.
No.
Neither. I prefer a good action.
Yeah,
or a
right on.
good
Give me some
drama.
Lethal Weapons type stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
Something
Steven
like
Seagal.
that. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And my nephew is in the movie business in just north of Toronto.
Oh, it's okay.
So he's done a lot of his genre seems to be Christmas movies.
Oh, really?
Which we always joke that life isn't the way his movies are.
Right.
But having said that, it's kind of nice to watch those because everything happens just the way it's supposed to.
Oh, it's just so nice and wonderful.
That's right.
So perfect.
So I like the dramas and the actions, not so much the sci-fi. If it's a good comedy, yes, but sometimes good comedies are hard to find.
They are, right? Like
Yeah.
I tease Jennifer, my wife, because she watches these. She's going to laugh if she watches this. Some of those comedy romance things, I'm like, and I'll say to her, like, do you want me to tell you what's going to happen here? He's going to pretend he's lying to her, she's lying to him about something, and then the lies get bigger and bigger, and at the end of it all, they finally realize they can't hide whatever anymore, and they kiss and they make up, and everybody's happily ever after.
And you're 2 hours older.
Right? So even though like when I watch Star Wars, I'm thinking, boy, when the ships are going like this and flipping upside down, how come the people inside the ship aren't actually flipping upside down?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Anyway,
Great point.
spoil the movie, right? But reading. So like self-help for like working on this. You work on that a lot, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do like the self-help ones. I like the leadership, the management ones. Because I deal with finance every day at work, I also deal with finance at home. I've got my own budget, so my own spreadsheets, and my own that kind of stuff. And I think that's important for anybody. But I enjoy that. I enjoy those numbers. Very much, and kind of forecasting where I'll be in a year or 2 years. I mean, that's part of that competitive spirit and goal setting. I apply a lot of that work techniques to my personal life. We talked about negotiating. At work. I negotiate at home too. I'm sure they hate seeing me come into local stores. I'm willing to negotiate on anything. I think going to St. Jacobs Market, go there after noon. You can negotiate with the farmers and the baked goods.
Is that right?
A lot cheaper
Okay.
than if you're there at 10.
Right.
So,
there you go. That's something
it's
important to know.
Follow me for tips.
Right. There you go. We should start the Dave Brown Instagram page or something like
absolutely.
that.
Happy to open
And
that.
you'd have lots of advice here. Let's talk about money, though, on a personal side. I'm always curious. I have some questions that I often ask my guests, like we talked about school, and you said that was kind of good for you. You didn't mind high school and that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't love school.
Right.
But I understood it was a means to an end.
Right. Yeah.
So I figured, I'm only here for 4 years.
Couldn't wait to get done?
12. Yeah, I couldn't wait to get done and get out and start making some real money.
Yeah.
I say real money, versus part-time job. I look forward to that and getting on with my life.
Yeah. And let's talk about money, and we talk about money management in school. I always think, are we teaching enough about money and money management in our school system?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. It's one of the things that I really talked a lot to my kids about. My son, when he was 16 years old, he used my TFSA as his brokerage account.
Okay.
And he was buying stocks and bonds when he was younger. My daughter had a brokerage account as well. And yet we talked about that. And, both my kids, we want to be rich, we want to be rich. And I said, well, you got to remember, it's not how much you make, it's how much you spend. Yeah. And I've seen on YouTube people talk about it's how much you keep.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
And
that's what I would have said.
Yeah, and I pointed out, a guy who makes $100,000 a year but spends $100,000 is not as rich as a guy who earns 50 and spends 40.
Yeah.
And I think you got to really focus on what your needs are versus your wants.
Yeah.
And yeah, to answer your question, I don't think financial literacy is taught nearly as much as it ought to be at school, and not a lot of parents have that skill set.
Well,
either.
that's the thing, my wife would call it the monkey see, monkey do. Go to school, get good grades, save all your money, and you'll be fine. But that's not really the case anymore, is it? Like, we have to do more than just save our pennies, don't we? Because the pennies are gone, by the way.
Yeah.
But saving, but investment.
Yeah, you got to make those savings work for you.
Yeah.
Just don't put under your mattress because with inflation you're losing as it is.
Yeah.
So put that money to work and understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, and those liabilities and assets. And I think those people who understand those kinds of things will do better, not only in the short term, but in the longer term once they get into retirement and maybe aren't able to work those overtime hours like they could because of age or health or whatever. But yeah, definitely financial literacy, I think, needs to be taught much more. Yeah. We used to fund a program in Sarnia, Financial Fitness.
Okay.
They're no longer in Sarnia. But I think they would have told you the same thing, that the people that they're seeing, they don't understand what how expensive credit card debt really is, and how to get a mortgage, and how to increase your credit score, and why is that important. I mean, you may not be borrowing money, but still a good credit score is important to have, and to why.
And so, what's a credit score?
Exactly.
What's do you know what a credit card interest rate is right now?
Well, I think they play games. It's like 1.9 or 2% a month, but then in times that it's not 24%. No. It's like 27.5 or more.
Yeah.
And I apologize, my numbers are a little bit off, but it's far more than what a secured or unsecured.
We
credit
just
line's
got a
gonna
letter for our credit card, and we're good at. We just use it and pay it.
Right. Just get
that's
the
way. They don't like us at all.
Yep.
It was 19%, and we just got a letter saying it's gone up to 29% on a credit card.
Yeah.
And so many people, I think, are. Would you agree, anyway, that so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, and there's too much month at the end of the money?
Yeah, I think so. There's also that instant gratification. I want it now, or need it now, or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a case to be made that if it's on sale, but it's got to be, like in your case, 29% cheaper if you got to put it on your credit card anyways, which sounds unrealistic.
Right.
But yeah, imagine spending almost 30% interest.
How do you pay that off?
Yeah, you just start digging yourself.
Even at $1,000.
And people need to understand about these payday loan places. Or these
you just read
stores.
my mind.
They're not, $200 free. And so sometimes you see that on the sign.
Right.
It's not free, not at all. And sometimes when people because they're desperate, and we see high inflation now. We know some people have lost their jobs and a number of things because of the pandemic. They're desperate, so they go to a cash store. They get what they need to buy groceries or to pay their hydro bill or whatever. And many of those people just never dig themselves out.
Right.
And
it becomes a vicious cycle.
Absolutely. And if we can let kids know that at the high school level, before they leave, before they start making the big money and getting car loans and mortgages and whatnot, to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's can we talk a little government here?
Sure. It's your show.
Well, hey, you don't have to answer, but the whole money thing, and like I've always said, and I hear people complain all the time about the price of gas has gone up and the price of food, and they're not wrong, but like prices go up, they don't go down.
Yeah.
So. Is the government doing everything they could be? I know maybe you got to be careful here, but like, is the government doing everything they should be, could be, whatever the word is, to be helping the communities and the people? Do you know what I'm asking here?
Yeah. Short answer is no.
Yeah.
And I certainly have some advice for them.
Yeah.
But no, I think, I understand the importance of green energy and climate change and all of that. But it can't be a knee-jerk reaction. We have to have a long-term plan.
Right.
I personally believe fossil fuels will be with us for a long time because we need it.
Yeah.
And it's not just, we make green battery cars and that, all the plastics that we use has petroleum in it. Everything we use every day has got products that are manufactured or refined right here in Sarnia. So just by converting everything to electric, it's not going to mean all of a sudden we're zero footprint. And I do believe pipelines are a cost-effective, safe, environmentally friendly to transport those fossil fuels to Sarnia or elsewhere from Sarnia. You don't see, and the tragic train derailment in East Palestine, in Ohio.
Yeah.
I know that the local pipeline companies are thoroughly always checking those lines, and you just don't. Thank God we don't see any of those kinds of tragedies with pipelines. They don't sink like ships do. They don't derail like trains do. So I think the end game, sure, let's focus on green energy and let's focus on some of this stuff. But there's a big distance between where we are today and that day. And I think we have to be smart on how we go about that. And this is my personal opinion, not necessarily that of the United Way.
Yeah, right.
But I think I think there's more work that we could be done in making internal combustion engines more efficient and more clean. And I wonder sometimes if we just kind of abandoned that thought and just jumped in both feet with EVs, as an example. So I forget your original question. I guess it was about the government costs. So I think carbon taxing and all these things is raising the costs. For not only you and I, but also for the farmer who's growing the crops or growing the cattle, or for the trucking company who's got to bring it from the farm to the company or to the factory to our store. So those costs are there.
Yeah.
And I think we'd be better off maybe taking some of that money and putting it into some kind of research to make what we're using now with fossils more efficient, more cleaner. I mean, we saw Ontario Hydro, OPG.
Yep.
I mean, again, everybody is all in favor of clean air. But what we had down at Moortown, or Courtright, was clean, and they had built scrubbers in, and they had done a lot of work there. And I think there's more work that they could have done instead of just abandoning it, closing it down, and going all in with solar and nuclear. I mean, what are we going to do with nuclear waste? And all these other things. We could have had the focus on making it cleaner with all those jobs. I mean, I remember going down to OPG, and there'd be hundreds of employees down there making decent money. Great United Way supporters. I think in our peak year we raised about $63,000 or $65,000 down there in the early 1990s. When I go by a solar farm or a wind farm, I might see 2 people, and yet our costs are much higher. So I think we can, if we had done that, focused on getting that to be cleaner. Again, all my opinion. We could still, get into solar and wind when it becomes more efficient. But just to jump in and have all that farmland
do it
now,
suddenly.
I mean, what's going to happen when those windmills run out of their life? What's going to happen with the batteries in EVs when they're out of their life? Where are we going to put those things?
Well, I mean, we're recycling plastic bottles now.
Right.
That was a good thing, and then, but I don't know. There's a sacrifice there because I don't like the new straws.
The paper ones.
The paper ones. Can we please get rid of that? But anyway, Well,
we have paper straws, but we still have the plastic lids.
Yeah, I know. So far.
So far.
We'll just go into the fast food place and go, I want that. And just plug the IV in here. We'll just
or put your hand out and drive home like that.
Yeah. Some really great points there, and you've put a lot of thought into that, obviously. You didn't just come up with that answer right now. So you're a smart person, and you're a caring heart person. You're genuine, as long as I've known you. But the smart side of you, would you ever dare run for some kind of office, whether it be local or federal or?
I might consider it. Federally, I'm not bilingual. My kids are, so that would be a challenge there. Municipally, perhaps. I've had people urge me or nudge it or suggest it. At this point, I don't have an interest, but I'm certainly not closing the door.
But Panama's first.
Right. Right. Well, United Way right now is first, and then you're right, but the Panama on a shorter term.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's. I might be persuaded, perhaps, but at this point, I'm not.
And are you as observant locally on politics as you are federally? And I suppose does locally have an effect on United Way as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I've got a good relationship with many of the not only the city councilors but also the county councilors and mayors. Good relationship with them, and I don't hesitate to pick up the phone and text any of them whenever, or have breakfast with some of them. So, yeah, it could definitely have an effect. Yeah, certainly regulations, certainly a lot of licenses and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, right.
As a role, and that provincially as well.
Yeah.
So there's some things there that could be done, I think, more efficient too.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right, we'll leave it at that. But fair enough. I mean, it's I appreciate you giving us as much as you did there, because politics can be an interesting conversation. But what I like about you, whenever we've talked, and we've gone out and had burger and beer and some pretty straightforward conversations. You're a processor, all right? Would you say you're that? You take it. You don't just jump, like you say, the knee-jerk thing, and you take it and you walk away and process, or is there some impulse there with Dave Brown?
No, I try not to have impulse. Yeah. It tends to get me into trouble when I do. But no, I try to process it and look at all sides. When we go to other conferences, for example, and somebody either from a Michigan conference or Ontario conference talks about what their United Way is doing or their charity is doing, not necessarily United Way. And I think about, well, how can we Sarnia-ize it? Because, the concept sounds good, but the way they did it in that community, I'm not sure. I think there's a better way of doing it in our community. Yeah. So we try to Sarnia-ize it to some degree. I like that. And in some cases it goes. A lot of cases it goes. Others it's a limited time anyways.
Yeah. Right.
But no, I do try to process things and not make a knee-jerk reaction. Certainly, I'm getting back to financial literacy. That's a key thing too. Is this something I really need, or is this something that I want?
Need, want.
Yeah, and once you can identify those two things, decision making becomes a lot easier.
It's still okay to want, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, like I want that. My son would say, "I want the latest phone."
Yes. Yeah. Although now I got an excuse. I use it for work, so I can say.
Yeah. Okay. So I got to have the latest and the greatest, and I'm doing Facebook Live now. I got to have the.
That's right. I got to look good.
No, that. Yeah. Sure. Way to sell that for sure.
To myself.
Right. Dave Brown, what is your sense of humor? You've got one, but how far does it stretch?
I think it's dry.
Yeah.
I think I've got a good one. I know a lot of people laugh at stuff that I say.
Yeah.
Most of the funny stuff.
Right.
So I think I've got a good sense of humor. I try not to be too sarcastic, but sometimes with politics you do.
I love being
sarcastic. You're going to stumble into that. But I think it's a dry. Okay. Sometimes I might say something that's probably inappropriate.
Okay.
But I try to know my audience as best I can.
Right.
Yeah, I could say the inappropriate stuff to Dave.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, I think I've got a pretty good sense of humor. I'm pretty well-rounded. I work in United Way is a female-dominated. I mean, the whole charitable sector is female-dominated. I grew up with two sisters and a stay-at-home mom. Most of my staff throughout my career our coworkers have all been women. And a lot of volunteers in the plant sites and the work sites are women. So I think I think I'm pretty good at understanding. Although I mean mistakes are made from time to time.
Sure.
But I think by and large, I get along pretty good that way.
All right. You've seen a lot of change over the years, I'm sure, as far as well, how people think, and culture would be a big part, I think, of.
Right.
We've seen, lots of folks from different parts of the world coming to Canada.
Yes.
Specifically here, to the school, et cetera. So there's, I'm sure, been an adaptation of thinking along the way. Are we too easily offended? Are we in that?
As society?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Do you think we can ever get back the other way? Like, will we take too much of that?
I think so. I mean, I think it's a pendulum. I think we will. There's got to be some changes, though.
Yeah.
But I think people are often... Now, maybe I was too quick to answer that. Maybe it's a small group that's offended, and they're very loud and they're very vocal.
Yeah.
But I think, as a whole, we seem to be. Like when I first started, we had some Jewish volunteers.
Right.
And when I was young in my career, I would say, "Oh, Merry Christmas." I still say Merry Christmas all the time too.
Yeah.
But I'd say Merry Christmas to Sid and some of these others. And I was told afterwards, "Oh, he's Jewish. It's Hanukkah." And Sid would speak up and he said, "No. He's welcoming me into his culture. He's welcoming me."
Right.
I don't see that as an offensive statement. It's great that he is involving me and including me in his beliefs, in his culture. And he would wish me Happy Hanukkah at that time.
Right.
And it was really nice. And I've had some folks who are new to Canada and say that they truly lived in a multicultural city where they would celebrate everybody's holidays on the street.
Right.
And so you were all inclusive. You'd go to this celebration, or next week that celebration. It's unfortunate we don't do as much of that, I think, anymore.
Okay.
Although maybe more likely in smaller towns, smaller communities, and maybe it would be in the big where you've got this association and that association. Sarnia is. We are at the bring up United Way one more time. We had the Imperial Employee Kickoff Barbecue today.
Yeah, right.
And of course they had hot dogs and sausages. The mainstay with United Way and chili. But they also had some of their committees. They had the Pride Group, and they had a booth, and they were raising funds for the United Way at the picnic. And then there was the Goal Group, which is made up of Latin American employees who work at Imperial.
Oh, okay.
And they had a food booth, and they had 3 or 4 of their desserts that they were selling to raise money for United Way. And then next to them is the Best Group, which is Black Employees Success Teams.
Okay.
And they had a food booth of all their foods that they were selling to raise money.
Okay.
So it was awesome to see the multicultural at that work site at Imperial, all raising money for this community.
Yeah.
I really commend not only the employees but Imperial for recognizing that and putting that on. And I got some great pictures of all of them, and it was great to see. And I think if we could do more of that kind of thing as a society and as a community, I think it's onwards and upwards.
Yeah. Well, really interesting to hear that story. Like, you don't think like you do. You just think like, oh, we're having a barbecue today, and it's just one setup, but there was multi-representation and mutual respect by the sound of it there and going on. And that's really, I mean, like, I don't think we'll ever see an Archie Bunker again on television.
No.
Or Good Times. Although, like, I remember watching that with my parents, and it was okay, right?
But they're also teachable moments. I remember watching it with my parents, and as kids we'd ask questions, and my parents would explain things.
Yeah.
So they were teachable moments. It wasn't a babysitter for you and I.
Right. Yeah, good point.
So I think the world is full of teachable moments. And if something happens that might be offensive or whatever, then take the time to explain why. Not to all of a sudden accuse and make accusations.
Point fingers, blame, all that stuff.
But explain that. And I mean, we've got an Aboriginal woman on our board of directors, and she was talking, and we got talking just like what you and I do.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and the those First Nations sports names, and I asked her, I said, is that really offensive to you? Because we could ask those kinds of questions.
Fair question.
And so she answered, and she brought up points that I'd never even considered.
Right.
And I mean, either one of us were offended by the question, by the answer. It was an educational. I got an opportunity to tell her what my view was through my lens, and she told me based on what hers was, and we both walked away with greater knowledge, and I certainly now understand why in some cases, some of these names or these street names or whatever are offensive to certain people. Mm-hmm. Not to say that I think that necessarily it's systemic racism.
No.
It's just that, these are different times, mm-hmm. and we do have to be more careful now, because there are histories that people have.
For sure. What a great explanation there. Isn't it nice to, and even you and I have, I call it the burger and beer moments that we've had, or maybe it's beer and burger, whatever. But you and I haven't always necessarily agreed on everything that we've discussed, but isn't it nice to be able to have those conversations without getting angry, without having to stomp our feet or whatever I'm trying to say, and still move forward with some type of solution. Are we stuck? Or are we needing more of that, or are we headed in that direction?
Looking at the United Way board table, we have a lot of different cultural backgrounds.
Okay, all right.
As well as diverse thought. Not just diverse backgrounds, but diverse thought.
Right.
And ultimately, all 15 of us, plus staff.
They're all local. When I say local, meaning Lambton County.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, not only does the money raised in the community is used in the community, but local decision making.
Yeah.
And there are some discussions that are not anonymous or not unanimous. But at the end of the day, we all know we're on the same team. Right. We all want a better community for ourselves and for our neighbors. Just like you and I are when we have those burger and beers. Right. We're ultimately good people. We want good things to happen to all people.
Right.
It's just sometimes we might have a disagreement on the best path forward.
Yeah.
But in talking about it and asking those kinds of questions, there may be some things that I hadn't considered, or maybe you hadn't considered, or maybe collectively we come up with a better idea. Mm-hmm. And I see that on some of the boards that I've been on. I worry about society as a whole, whether or not that's the case in all cases. But I think there's a lot of tangible examples where it is happening. And if we continue to use teachable moments, not only for our kids, but also for coworkers and family members, I think there's a positive path forward.
Yeah, awesome. You've got a great way of thinking about things. I've always noticed you're a philosophical man, right? Yeah. And from your reading to everything we've just discussed here, I think you should run for something at some point. I'm sure I'd vote for you, right? But still United Way, and then Panama's down the list, and some other things, and life's pretty good for Dave Brown.
It is. I've been. People have suggested I consider writing a book.
I was going to ask that question.
That might be something that I think about.
Yeah. You don't have to wait for certain people to be dead before you can do that, or
no. Thankfully, no.
Right.
But there's local people who wanted me to co-write with them. My cousin that I talked about about some ideas that either one of us could do. So that's something that I might if I'm bored in Panama.
If you don't like English negotiating with the farmers.
That's right. And my Google Translate's not working. I'll have some time to put some thought to that. So that's certainly something that I would consider. Okay. You remember the great Alan Wells. He's no longer with us. He told me one time, and I had the pleasure of working with him a few times, told me that he stressed to his kids that they leave something behind and they write a book. And so, of course, Paul is a journalist himself. He has another son who I think was editor of the Calgary Sun, I think, and a daughter. And every one of them wrote a book. And one of the things that he stressed to his kids, write a book. So there's
it's on my list.
Something that has your name on it when you leave. And
I've got a title, but that's as far as I've gotten. I don't know. So
that's an interesting thought. And I enjoyed talking to Alan Wells, and that was one of the many things that stuck with me.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Dave, we could keep going, but we're going to save it for burger and beer, I think, next time. I really appreciate your time. First time I've been here in your home, and
it is.
The sun is shining, and the bridge is there, and life's good for Dave Brown. So thanks to all of you for watching. You know what I'm going to say, because I say it all the time. Make sure you click the like and the love button. That's awesome. But please click the share button. It's the most important button you can click to share Dave's story and all the other guests that I have here on the show. But for now, That's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time right here in the show. Bye for now. And that's it.
Wonderful.